Well, g'day curd nerds. G'day curd nerds. Well, g'day curd nerds. Well, g'day curd nerds. Well, g'day curd nerds. Well, g'day curd nerds. It's working. G'day curd nerds. Welcome to Ask the Cheeseman, and this is where you can ask all your home cheese making questions, and fingers crossed I can answer them for you. That's the plan anyway. This is episode 141. It's a special one, a special day that is dear to my heart, and that is Anzac Day. Anzac Day is similar to Memorial Day in the US, or Remembrance Day in the UK. So it's the day that back in, let me get this right, 1915, that Australians and New Zealanders stormed the beaches of Gallipoli in World War One, and it was a baptism of fire, to say the least. Anyway, strange days with us at the moment, so you'll know that we're in lockdown, and so are many other people. In fact, Anzac Day ceremonies throughout Australia have been cancelled for the first time since 1918. So it's a sad day insofar as I can't get together with my family, who we normally go to the dawn service with, which is a ceremony we have here to commemorate people that have served in the armed forces, lost their lives and survived. So consequently, what I'll be doing at the end of the show, I will play the last post. But until then, let's get on with all the cheese making stuff that we normally do on a live stream. So a shout out today, YouTube members. Thank you to all the YouTube members. There are no new ones this week. But thanks very much for all the ones who support the show financially. We've got 3 new patrons today. Thank you. Big shout out to Kelly Cleveland. Thank you, Kelly. To Emily Kramer. Thank you, Emily. And to Larry, unknown last name. Thank you, Larry, for all your financial support. Now, the cheeses that I've been working on, in post-production, we've got Morbier, which is an ash-lined cheese, bit of a smelly one, according to my cheese fridge, and Kim, who tells me off every time I open it. But it should be one delicious cheese. And yesterday I managed to get myself some milk, and I made a gouda using a mould that was sent to me by a company called Lauder. Rhymes with Gouda, Lauder, and it's a mould that where you don't need a cheesecloth, which is really cool, and you'll see that in a video coming up. That's a sponsored video, by the way, but it's a cheese making video nonetheless. I'll tell you what, the shape of the cheese is amazing. It looks beautiful. Okay, and that's all the notes that I've got. So let's say hello to some peeps. Hang on, I'll just turn the volume down on the microphone. It looks a little bit peakish. Anyway, Kim's already putting links up for people, which is so cool. Thank you, Kim. I forgot to mention you that Kim is moderating today. We're only going to go for an hour today. She's a bit tired. So, yeah, it'll be an hour for the show today. So we'll finish at 9 o'clock our time. Now, you notice that the hair's looking a bit scruffy. I think this is the longest hair I've ever had for an Anzac Day. Normally I would have gone to the barber by now, but unfortunately they're all closed. So no haircut for me. Crazy times. And don't forget that if you do a super chat, you get to light up the Curd Nerd light just like that, and support the show financially. That's fantastic. Okay, let's have a look. Now, I seem to have lost... oh, there's a super chat. That was a reminder. There's a super chat straight away. So let's start off the show with The flashing curd nerd light. Let's have a look. That's from Ruth. Thanks, Ruth. She's on the channel. That's fantastic. Let's have a look. Ruth says in podcast number 53, Ruth's referring to the podcast channel, a chef named Dean invented a cheese called Cheddar Romano, which was a cross between cheddar and Romano. Have you made it? Is he still around? I would like to try it. Yeah, I think the podcast episode was recorded quite a few years ago, Ruth. But great question. Cheddar Romano, and he said it tasted fantastic. What he did, and I think he just described it in the podcast episode, he took a batch of cheddar. He could have used stir curd. I think he did the full cheddaring process. And he did a batch of Romano, I think, with cow's milk. So it would have been Vicino Romano. And he just combined the curds together. So the mix of flavours would have been quite amazing. I haven't made it, but it's a damn fine suggestion. So I'm going to pop it on my list. Can't even get my words out right today. Romano. So it's a good idea. I've actually got a bigger mould at the moment. The Lauder company sent me a 3 kilogram mould, which is freaking amazing. I've got to make a press for it because the press I have just doesn't fit. So anyway, the great suggestion. Thank you, Ruth, and thank you for your $20 super chat. I really appreciate it. Okay, so questions. Let's have a look. No, let's say g'days. G'day to Jackson, Monique, Charlie, Rocky, Ambrose, Tamer, Wolfhound 180, Game Smashers, Victoria, Darren, Sophie, Laura, Dan, Stephen, Beatrice, Sean, Larry from Deep South Texas, Co Beer, Belgian Swede. Who else we got? Oh, Karen, g'day Karen, Kim, of course, Hattie, g'day Hattie, Michael, Nicola, Farron, Giorgio, I think that's how you pronounce it, DJ, John, Andrew, my goodness, am I close to the bottom? Let's have a look. Billy, Gypsy Smith, Avion, I think that's how you say it, Jacqueline, and Michael again, different Michael, and Brian and Carol, there we go. That's everybody who's on the stream right now. We've got 73 people, or 71 according to my little ticker, but I think that's going up. Lovely to have you all on board today. So let's get to some questions, because that's why we're here, right? Let's have a look. And Monique says, hope my Anzac Day is going well. Yes, indeed, it is. I actually kind of feel not dirty, strange that I didn't get up early and go to the dawn service today, Monique, as I mentioned. And it was kind of sad that I didn't get to see my 2 daughters and, well, my son Ben, he lives with us. But, you know, going to the ceremony together, it's a tradition in our family. So, yeah, didn't happen. Can't, social distancing, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, bit sad. I'll stop it. Right. Monique has a question, says, don't know if you remember, but a year ago I didn't have lipase for my parmesan, so I used a litre of goat's milk in your recipe. This was an experiment and I wanted to see how it turned out. 6 months, after 6 months it was okay, but after a year it's strong, but not in a good way. It has a vomit taste. That stays at the back of your throat. So folks, do yourself a favour, don't use goat's milk in parmesan. Vomit. Yeah, too much lipase actually creates a vomity sort of smell, taste. Taste is bad. Smell's okay, because some really strong parmesan cheeses do have that smell, that odour. But yeah, if it tastes like that, yeah, not so good. So yeah, good advice, Monique. Don't use goat's milk in your parmesan. Okay, I'll try to remember that as well. Rocky says, all bow to the cheese god. Can't wait to get my Talk Curry to me. I didn't make any t-shirts with Talk Curry. Oh, Talk Curdy to me. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, okay, yes. Great t-shirt. I've actually got one somewhere. Anyway, Ambrose says, hey, Gavin and Kim, hope you are well. We're doing okay. Thanks, Ambrose. I'm going to make the herb and garlic butter soon, but I don't have mixed garlic salt with mixed herbs. What ratio do you recommend? So I think it was about 1/3. This is just looking from the jar. It was about 1/3 garlic, granules, 1/3 salt, and 1/3 herb mix. So, oh, we've got another super chat. Hang on, let me just get that. So yeah, that was the ratio. So third. You should get a whole lot. So that's how it was. So you should be able to make it up yourself, Ambrose. And yeah, salt to taste, because it might not be enough salt. And now let's get to this super chat. This from Avion 2, $20 super chat. Thank you so much for that. The question is, Rich C used koji on ricotta to make a cheese he compared to well-aged cheddar. Have you considered using koji rice in cheese making? Now, koji is a Japanese fermented rice, if I remember rightly. I don't know if that's his name, Rich. I think it's from. I did see he used koji rice in something. Anyway, I'll have a look. I haven't used it in anything, but it sounds interesting. So koji rice adds a umami flavour to things when you ferment it. It's a fermented rice. It's got this little, I think it's a fungi and a lactic bacteria that grows on it as well. But no, I haven't used it. I haven't seen it. But yeah, I'll have to get some from a specialty grocer and maybe try that out. It's on the list anyway. Thanks very much for your super chat. Appreciate it. Okay, answered Ambrose's question. It's great. Tamar says, hi Gavin, hope you and Kim are fine. Best wishes. Thanks, Tamar. Everybody else is saying g'day. Wolfhound 180 said, I'm making 16 litres, a 16 litre batch of stirred curd cheddar as we speak. That's absolutely fantastic. Keep stirring. Your arm's going to get sore. Anyway, where else? Somebody want to share pictures. Dan says, do you prefer raw milk or processed? I think that means processed. Oh, yep, down there. Yep, righto. Well, any milk I can get my hands on, I'll try and make a cheese with. I do prefer raw milk when I can get it, as long as it's, I'm happy with the handling of the milk. I've been offered raw sheep's milk in the past, and I've used that, and it was absolutely fantastic. Had a bit of trouble setting a curd, but I figured it out eventually. I've been offered raw cow's milk, and that's been fine, and raw goat's milk, and I've had no troubles with them. I tend to make higher temperature cheeses with the raw milk, and that's just personal preference. I don't make fresh cheese with raw milk. But I do get a great milk from, and a shout out here to Inglenook Dairy, who's a local producer near Ballarat in a town called Dunstown. And they make the best, what's it called? I'm looking for the word, pasteurised, unhomogenised. So it's cream line milk. All the cream floats to the top. So yeah, great cheese, great milk. And in fact, I made the Morbier and the Gouda using their milk. That's really good. Okay. Yeah, where's another question? Stephen says, hope you're all keeping 2 metres away from each other. Well, that's the beauty of the internet, I suppose. We can all be thousands of kilometres away from each other and still feel like a community, which I certainly do. on this show. Sean says, hi Gav, all the best to Kim. Hope you're doing all right there, Kimmy. I'm trying to make a blue cheese. I tried making blue cheese and actually left the heat on while the curds were setting. It got to 104 Fahrenheit anyway to save it. 104 Fahrenheit. Using my cheese brain, that's 40 Celsius. Maybe, because most mesophilic starter cultures, and I assumed you use a mesophilic, Sean, in your cheese, they kind of die off at 38 degrees Celsius. So you may not get the lactic bacteria activity that you're seeking to develop the flavours in the blue cheese. However, I would still persevere if you've already have. There may be a slight chance, maybe 25% chance, that the cheese will turn out with amazing flavours. And besides that, the penicillium roquefort 40 tends to take over when ripening occurs anyway, but you still need that little bit of lactic bacteria to create the acid in the cheese. But yeah, see how it goes, Sean. I'd continue on. And if it comes to taste test time and it doesn't taste all right, then, hey, it's no great loss, really. Just make another one and keep an eye on the heat, basically. Okay. Belgian Swede says, a good day, Gavin. Good day to you. Love the channel. My son Harrison and I love making cheese. Let's clear my throat. Got a bit of a frog in my throat. Do you have any suggestions for a Christmas cheese I could make now? I do, actually. Try Sage Derby. Sage Derby is a lovely green cheese. I know Christmas has a green and red motif, but you could try that out. So Sage Derby, Kimmy, if you can put the link up, that would be fantastic. I'll just hit the Curd Nerd light, and that's from Greg. And Greg, thank you, Greg. I was actually here for the live show, but I didn't get my name read at the top. Sorry, Greg. I'm sorry about that. Decided to do a super chat to get my name read. Have a great day, Gavin Kim. Sorry, mate. I didn't do that on purpose. But thank you for your kind $15 super chat and your shout out, Greg. There you go, mate. Sorry about that. Okay. I didn't mean to skip anybody. All right. Karen says, good afternoon from Washington State. I made a palm style this week. 2 hours after adding the rennet, I still had a sloppy curd set. That's not good. Not sure if there's a question there, Karen, because there's not enough to diagnose anything in that statement, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Let's see if you... Oh, no, she did down a little bit further. It says, end result was perfect looking curds, higher yield than usual. Did I miss something? No. With less dense feel to the final cheese. Any ideas? No, I haven't come across that problem before. Higher yield than usual, less dense feel. I don't know. Ripen the cheese, see what happens. Well, it could have been the milk. Didn't really state what kind of milk it was or anything like that, because if it was non-standardized itself, it was like raw milk. Sometimes a little bit hit and miss, depending on the lactation cycle, where you are in the lactation cycle of that animal. So could have something to do with it. Hattie says, what is needed to start a small cheese business? What are your suggestions? Shall I start at home, or is it an easy process? What equipment is needed? My goodness me, I could write a book on that. Hattie, I really can't answer that, mate, because I don't run a cheese making business. I don't have the experience. There are different regulations for different countries and different states within those countries as well. So that's something you're going to have to do a bit of research yourself. I just don't have the information. There are lots of people who are out there that may be willing to consult, having done started their own cheese making business. But unfortunately, mate, sorry, I'm just a home cheese maker with lots of experience. who does lots of research and knows the answers to quite a few questions. So, sorry, can't help you out. Michael says, I want to start experimenting with cultures. What can I expect when mixing mesophilic with the thermophilic? What effect does thermal have on cheese characteristics? That's a great question. Now, in fact, the thermophilic that I use, Michael, does have a mesophilic mixed in. It's a bit of a blend. It has 3 thermophiles. I'm talking about MOT92, which is made by Sacco. That's the one I use. So MO292 has 3 thermophiles and a mesophile. And basically at the start of the process, when the milk's below 38, you're getting acid development from the mesophilic culture. And then once you go over 38 and approach about 40, 42 Celsius, you start to find that the thermophiles start kicking in and rapidly acidify the milk as well. So that's what's going to happen. You're going to get an extra acid development. You're going to get extra flavour, because as the lactic bacteria die and the remaining enzymes that are left behind, they will create proteolysis, which is breakdown of the proteins in the milk, and lipolysis, which is the breakdown of the fats within the milk. So they'll help to develop extra flavours as well. So yeah, have a muck around. I like to try a new culture every so often. It's always good to try these things out as a cheesemaker. Nicola says, hello everybody. And Ferran, g'day Ferran from Jakarta. Lovely to see you. One of our close neighbours here in Australia. Giorgio, I think, says, I just found this channel a few days ago. Awesome content. I'm not really a curd nerd, so what do you suggest is a good starting point for a beginner enthusiast? Giorgio, Kim's put a few links down there for you, so you could try whey ricotta or even sweet ricotta. There's another YouTube video there somewhere. And paneer, she's put the link for paneer. So a couple of great cheeses to start off your cheese making journey with. Kevin says, did you get the pics of Morbier? Yeah, I got them yesterday, late yesterday, Kevin. I had a quick look. They look fantastic. I hope mine's half as good as what your Morbier looks like. Unfortunately, I can't show them on the show because I can't get them out of the email. They look like they're embedded in the email, and I can't get them out, and plus they're sideways. So I can't save them to my hard drive to show everybody in the show, which I would do normally, as you all know. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Sorry, Kevin. Well, let me just try. Hang on, let's see what I can do. 2 seconds, because Ruth sent me, and I haven't seen any further comments from Ruth. Now, you may hear some noises for the email machine going off, because that's what it does. Kevin. Where are you, Kevin? There he is. Let's see if I can get it up, and we'll put it on screen number 2. No, I can't make it any bigger than that. All right, well, let's have a look. So over at the desktop screen, here we are. And you can see, well, there's a picture of me. And there's Kevin's sideways Morbier. So it looks pretty good. Nice ash line in the middle. And nice red mould smear around the outside. Looks pretty good. And looks like the paste in the middle is quite soft. So that looks really good. Well done, Kevin. Well done to you. I do have another email that I got this week. Let's have a look if I can find that too. And that was from Ruth, who sent a picture of her Shropshire Blue. Now let's hope that comes up in a second. My email has just locked up. Come on, there we go. Let's see, can I bring up the picture? Oh my goodness, everything's locked up. It's not happening. Here we go. Hey, there we go. So big picture. So Ruth chose to wax her Shropshire blue. But I tell you what, that texture looks beautiful. And my head's twisting because I'm looking at the other monitor, but it does look amazing. There's some great marbling there, and the colour is outstanding. That is absolutely amazing. Well done to Ruth and well done to Kevin. If you have a cheese that you've made, you can send it to me via email. And the email address is, where am I looking? There's the camera. The email address is, if you go to the About tab down below, you'll get the direct email address to get in contact with me, and you can shoot me a cheese making a picture of your completed cheese. That would be lovely. Obviously based on one of my recipes, that makes it even better. And you can share it with all the other curd nerds. That's absolutely fantastic. Also, if you are modelling a t-shirt, one of my merches, then yeah, that's also pretty cool. So shoot that through to me as well. Okay, back to the questions. So, where we get? Andrew says, hang on. What do you do to your cheese wax to reuse it? Okay, yeah, good question. So what I do is let me just kill email so it doesn't go off all the time. Right. What I do is once I've used it on a cheese, I'll take it off, hopefully get it off in one piece. Usually I can do that. I'll then use a damp cloth, just a Chuck's cloth that I've got on a big roll. Chuck's is one of those blue dishcloths, disposable dishcloths. I'll run the wax under hot water, not hot water, warm water. Hot water, it starts to melt. Warm water, and get all the cheese gunk off it, and to make sure it becomes clean. I just then leave it on my dish drainer to dry, and then I put it back into the wax pot and put the lid on the wax pot, and that way I don't have any issues. And then next time I make cheese, that remelts into the wax pot and gets used in the next cheese. So that's how I reuse my cheese wax. Okay. Yeah, where are we? Next question. Gavin, no, DJ, I'm Gavin. DJ says, do I need 2 cheese caves? Cheeses seem to age at either 10 or 15 approximately. No, you only need 1 cheese cave. You will find, or cheese fridge, I find that 13 degrees Celsius is the perfect middle ground. So right in the middle of both those 2 temperatures, you'll get away with murder as far as cheese affinage goes. So no, you only need 1. You'll also find hot and cold spots within your cheese fridge as well. Down the bottom should be colder, up the top should be warmer. Not always necessarily that way, because in my cheese fridge, it's just a dorm fridge, and it's got the freezer section up the top, which I've taken the door off, the little flap. And that actually stays colder than the rest of the fridge. So if I'm doing a mold ripened cheese, like a white mold ripened cheese, like a camembert, I will do the aging, the warm aging part in there, and then I'll wrap it and transfer it to the normal kitchen refrigerator at 4 degrees to slow down proteolysis. So that works. So yeah, you can get away with that. Andrew says, why do you dilute the rennet and the calcium chloride? Good questions. Because if you don't, because they're such small concentrations. So in a 10 litre batch, for instance, yesterday in the gouda that I made, I used 2.5 millilitres of calcium chloride and 2.5 millilitres of rennet. Very tiny amounts. And I dilute them with 60 millilitres of water, which is a quarter of a cup. I find that you can distribute that amount, the diluted part in non-chlorinated water, you can distribute that through the milk better, because when you're stirring, you're pouring it for a longer time and you're actually mixed it through the milk better. That's the theory anyway. So yeah, you get better distribution through the milk. That's the reason why you dilute rennet and calcium chloride. But great question. In fact, I think it's the first time it's ever been asked on the channel. Calor says, hi Gavin, love your channel. I want to make Sherv style cheese, but I don't have any culture. Will it still work? No, probably not. The culture in Sherv, which is basically an aromatic mesophilic culture, works at eating some of the lactose in the milk and converts it to acid. That's why Sherv, or goat cream cheese, for want of a better word, is quite tangy because of the acidification. Can't really make it without the starter culture, unfortunately. Sorry, mate. Kobe says, I'm hot Marcona almonds. What? Tossed in rosemary. The guy at my cheese shop suggested a soft cheese, but I think a cheddar or mozzarella are better with rosemary. What do you suggest? I don't think either. Look, it's up to you. It's up to personal taste. I can't determine what your taste buds are like, so give it a go and see what happens. Laura says, put a fresh-made Gouda, a blue Gouda, your recipe, in a ripening box for 2 weeks. It grew beautiful blue mould, washed it and pierced it and set in an aging container in my cheese fridge at 11.5 Celsius. 2 days later, wrinkly exterior and evidence of skin slip. Is it a goner? I panicked and vac-packed it. No, it's not a goner. No cheeses are. You've seen some of the disasters that I've made. That's why I share them. I don't think it's a goner. See, with my blue Gouda, I don't even think I pierced it. Oh, did I? Yeah, I probably did. But yeah, it was. It didn't get skin slip or anything like that. That's a bit strange. It really does. Maybe the humidity was too high in your ripening container. That's a suggestion. Could have, maybe not. Not sure. Avignon says pronounced rickshaw. Oh, okay. I'll search for that. Thanks. No Place Like Cheese says, hi Gavin, long time fan of your channel. I would love for you to do Velveeta episode. Yeah, Velveeta is the devil's cheese. No, I don't think I'll be making Velveeta. It's a heavily processed cheese. Closest I got to it though is an American cheese that I made. And Kimmy, if you can put up the link to the original American cheese recipe that featured the lovely Larry from Deep South Texas, who kind of coaxed me into making the American cheese. And I don't look back because a lot of the cheeses that don't turn out quite right, and I haven't had many of those lately, just some, you can turn into quite an edible and melty cheese using sodium citrate. So yeah, all very good. It was a great little discovery. Thanks to Larry for pushing me in that direction. Max says, hey Gavin, me and my brother are wondering why you don't sell your cheese. Because it's illegal for me to sell my cheese, and I like eating it myself. Thank you very much. And the whole gist of the channel is for you to make your own cheese, not for me to sell my cheese. So unfortunately, I don't have the appropriate licensing and health standards that normal dairy producers have to adhere with here in Australia. So no, it's illegal for me to sell my cheese. XPFC Wintergreen says, thanks Gavin and Kim, love to all the curd nerds around the world. Indeed. Thank you very much. Laura says, once a Jarlsberg has done aging, growing eyes, at least 18 Celsius, can I then remove the wax and vac pack for aging in the cheese fridge? Or will the proteolysis and lipolysis not happen without oxygen? No, they don't need oxygen to happen. That's why you can age, say, a cheddar, vacuum packed from day one, after air drying, of course. So no, you don't need that. That's just a chemical reaction from the enzymes. So yeah, you should be okay once you remove it. Hopefully your vac packer won't crush the eyes in. They are delicate little beasties. I just tend to re-wax it. So normally a Jarlsberg will split the wax, not the cheese. It'll split the wax because it goes very soft during that eye formation. So just before I put it into the cheese fridge, I will re-wax it, and then once it goes to the cooler temperatures, the eye formation kind of stops. So you don't have any hassles with that. Okay. Okay, thanks, Laura. IOR says, how do you raise the temperature 2 degrees in an hour, like with Cheshire or Lancashire? Maybe a candle. You just go, you do it very slowly. So with my steam pot, and it's a great question, IOR, with my steam pot that I have underneath my milk pot, it's quite easy. It kind of naturally does it itself with those two cheeses. So 2 degrees in an hour is, I don't know why they do it. I suppose it helps expel a little bit more whey out of the curds, is the theory. But yeah, they do it very slowly with a water bath. Sorry, they use a steam bath because the vats that they use are 2-layered and hollow in the middle, so they can pump steam or hot water, warm water through the vat that way, and that's how they keep them warm. For us, my little steam pot will naturally bring the cheese up by 2 degrees over an hour if I leave it there. So that's how mine does it. With a sous vide wand and having a water bath and putting your pot in the water bath, that's pretty easy to achieve as well. Every 30 minutes, clock it up 1 degree Celsius. That's one way of doing it. Okay, John Miller Sr. says, thanks, Gavin, for keeping Kim in our prayers. My question is, the buttermilk that came out of your butter video, can that be used for something in the buttermilk blue or anything else? Thanks. Look, it can be used in lots of things. It's not a cultured buttermilk, so I wouldn't use it in the buttermilk blue because that's specifically stated in the recipe that I needed a cultured buttermilk, which is basically milk that is being curdled slightly with a aromatic mesophilic culture. So no, you can't use it for buttermilk blue, but you can use it for other things like traditional buttermilk pancakes. That's the buttermilk you use for that. So yeah, you can definitely use it for that. And anything else that any recipe says use buttermilk for, it's different. It tastes nice, slightly sweet. But yeah, you can use it in any cooking recipe, old school recipe that states that you need buttermilk. That's what it is. I gave a little bit to the dogs, and I regretted that because that's what they've been very stinky lately on the nose, farty dogs. But yeah, they didn't go through them very well. I gave a little bit to me chook, and she liked that. Mrs. Potts, the name of my chicken. Yeah, that's all cool. Liz says, hi Gavin, maybe this has already been asked. Sorry if it has, but I'm wondering if you leave the milk on the heat all the time to keep the temperature constant. No, I'm constantly turning the heat on and off. So typically on a typical, say, semi-hard cheese make, which differs than the others, what I will do is I will raise the temperature of the milk to the target temperature initially. I'll turn the heat off, usually because my steam bath raises the temperature automatically a few more degrees after that. I will either turn the heat off at 2 degrees Celsius before the target temperature and it'll heat up naturally, or I'll take the pot, if I'm rushed for time, I'll take the pot off and put it on the back burner of the stove that's off. And milk is amazing because it holds its temperature pretty well, may drop 1 or 2 degrees over an hour. So it holds its temperature really well. So that's really good. During culturing, the heat is not on at all. During renneting, the heat is not on at all. Then I'll put it back on the steam bath, which is just a little bit warm, and then it'll keep the temperature constant at the target temperature. Then if the recipe asks me to heat the milk up further during stirring, then I'll turn the steam bath and put that on the lowest heat I possibly got. And that usually takes about 45 minutes to get to whatever temperature. If I need to turn it on a little bit higher, then I'll do that. And then after the stirrings happen, basically it's draining and away you go. So yeah, look, I adjust the temperature as I need to, but normally during culturing and renneting, I don't have any heat on at all. And it holds its temperature. That's what you see me testing the temperature quite often in the videos. But yeah, great question. Thanks very much. And that was from Liz. Thanks, Liz. Jordan says, good morning. Good morning, Jordan. Kevin says, how long should I store a canned blue from making to eating? How long should I store? Are you meaning how long should you mature it? I think I matured mine for 6 weeks, and that turned out okay. Wasn't much white mould on it. It was more blue mould, but that tasted fantastic. One of the best little blue cheeses that I've made in ages, so that was quite good. Let me just have a quick sip. Okay. Michael says, do you know Mark from Self-Sufficient Me? If yes, if you're near him, I would love to see a collaboration, maybe using herbs and veg from his wonderful garden. Oh, I've got herbs and veg in my wonderful garden that I use. In the Sage Derby, I used the sage from my sage bush. What else have I used? Have I used... Oh, I can't remember. Maybe basil or something like that I've used from the garden as well. But I don't think I live near him. I have heard of him. I do know of Mark. I saw him on a podcast episode not so long ago. The podcast is called Creator Generation. It's done by a couple of Aussies here. And they interview podcasters from, not podcasters, YouTubers from all over the world and get their tips and tricks and stuff like that. But yeah, that's where I was first introduced to Mark. I do watch some of his shows. I think they're quite great. And very informative around growing your own fruit and veg and just being a little bit more self-sufficient. Very similar to the blog that I used to write, the Grenier Gavin, which is still there for everybody to go and have a look at. 7 years of journaling basically on how Kim and I became more self-sufficient. Okay, we've got another super chat there, which hasn't popped up in the top. I'll just turn that off and I'll go and find it. It's from Jim Jackson. Thank you, Jim, for your kind $2 super chat. It says, "G'day to our king and queen of curd herd." Very nice. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it, mate. Let's get back to the questions. Where are we? Mark from Self-Sufficient Me. We did that. Thank you. Kim put the Sage Derby link up. Thanks, Kimmy. Gavin. That's another Gavin, not me, but another Gavin. This has probably been asked, but how do you keep the cheese at a certain humidity? Well, I use ripening boxes now. They're just plastic boxes with a mat in the bottom, plastic mat to keep it off the cheese off the bottom. So when it weeps whey and moisture, then it doesn't sit in it, it's above it. It's got a lid on it, and normally if you want to increase the humidity to about 90%, I just put a damp dishcloth, not used of course, a new one, underneath the mat, and that raises the humidity to about 90% with the lid on in the cheese cave, and that works perfectly. If you want to keep it at about 80% humidity, you don't put a cloth in there at all, and the natural moisture coming out of the cheese keeps the humidity very high. It's also good to stop cross-contamination between different types of cheese. For instance, you can have a blue cheese in the cheese cave in a ripening box and a white mold cheese, and they won't get contaminated as long as you've got the lid on properly. Sometimes I accidentally leave it loose, and yes, you do get cross-contamination, mark my words. But yeah, you won't get cross-contamination if you've got blues in the same fridge as whites. And yeah, that's how I do it. Damien says, what's the difference between quick mozzarella and your real mozzarella? Mozzarella is the real way how the Italians do it. Good question, Damien. Yes, there is a difference. Quick mozzarella is made by acidifying the curd with citric acid. and that rapidly gets it to the acidity of between 5 and 5.3, a pH of 5 or 5.3. And then you can stretch it by heating the curd in a microwave, and bingo boingo, you got yourself kind of pretend mozzarella. Doesn't have the flavour profile that real mozzarella has. And especially if you make it with milk, then it doesn't taste like real mozzarella at all, because real mozzarella is made with buffalo milk, which is a lot fattier. It's got a lot more fat content in it. The real mozzarella that you've seen me make is the way the Italians do it, kinda. You use a culture, specifically a thermophilic starter culture, to raise the acidity of the curds. So then when it gets to between 5.3 and 5, then you can add hot water to it and stretch it as they do normally. So you get a kind of a low moisture mozzarella, if that's which is different than buffalo mozzarella, of course. Similar. DJ says, hi Gavin, do you need 2 cheese caves? I think I already answered that. Yeah, I answered that already. Thanks, DJ. Karen says, I use 2% pasteurised, non-homogenised milk. It seems more white in colour than usual. Followed your video as usual. I think you were talking about the Parmesan. But, yeah, okay. Well, that should have worked out, Karen, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll all work out okay for you. Augusto says, hi, Master. That's funny. Do you have a link to making the cream cheese like Philadelphia? Yes, Kimmy's put that up for you. Thank you very much. Pro Blank says, have I ever created my own cheese? Indeed, I have. You can have a look at videos, if Kim finds the links, to my Petite Blue. That was a creation of myself. The Bloomy Goat Blue was a recipe that I created myself. Let me think. Lazarus's Cabin was a failure, but it turned into a nice cheese. I kind of invented that one myself. So there's 3 I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe even go as far as the lactose-free mozzarella. I cobbled that together. So yeah, you could try that. Hand Solo said, Gavin, did you get the information about Yarg cheese that I posted in the comments section of 139? I'd have to refresh my memory. I'll go back. Yarg in Ask the Cheeseman 139. I think it was a whole bunch of info, but thank you, Hand. I'll go back and have a look at that, because Yarg would be nice. Let's have a look. Tess says, ricotta is my favourite to make. Even better when we can get fresh milk from the family member's farm. Yes, indeed. Fresh milk is better. Avignon says, what cheese do you think gets the most mileage in my household? Well, Caerphilly seems to get the most mileage, so that's the one I'll make the most often. Really, because I make different cheeses all the time. Rarely do I make the same cheese twice, unless it's like cottage cheese and I try to make it over and over, and it's kind of like a running gag on the channel that I still have issues trying to make that. So that's a bit of worry. But yeah, Caerphilly is one of the nicest cheeses that I like. Quick, because it's quick. That's the only reason. So you get a lovely flavour profile with only 3 weeks of maturation. That's 3 weeks. And yeah, if Kim can throw the link up to Caerphilly, that is a delightful cheese. I've made it over and over and over again. So that gets the most mileage in our house. John Lord, I didn't think you were coming today, but holy Swiss cheese, Batman. I'm late. I need an alarm clock on this laptop. Well done. Thanks, mate, for turning up. Doomcake says, are there any tricks to getting the wax off in one piece? Depends if it sticks to the cheese or not. Sometimes that occurs. There is a trick. There's a product that you can use, and it's a PVA coating that you can coat. A lot of Dutch cheeses do use that, and it's very liquidy. It's it's a polyvinyl acetate coating that actually has a mold inhibitor in it as well, and they kind of put that on the cheese first, and then they wax the cheese, and that the cheese wax peels off perfectly. If you've ever had what's a good example? A Baby Bell, you know, the little round red cheeses you get in the supermarket. You'll notice that underneath the red wax, there's a little white coating. That's the PVA coating. And not only does the PVA not stick to the cheese, the wax doesn't stick to the PVA coating. You can actually pull that white layer off. So yeah, there's a hint on how to get the wax off in one piece. Monique says, I drain my yogurt and have lots of watery yogurt whey left behind. Any ideas for using it besides making pancakes with it? Could I inoculate another batch of yogurt perhaps? Yes, indeed, you can. You can use that whey because it's still full of probiotic cultures and the starter culture, lactic bacteria cultures that are left behind in your from your yogurt. So yes, you can add a bit of that instead of yogurt to your next batch of yogurt. That would work perfectly well, Monique, if you've made it yourself. So yeah, good. You can also put that, there's only a little bit of it, there's not a lot that comes out of yogurt, but you can use a little bit of that in a smoothie. That just adds a little bit of lactobacteria, good for your gut. So yeah, you can put that in there. Damien says, hi Gavin, is there a difference between your quick, I've already done that one, quick mozzarella and traditional one? Yeah, we did that. Ior says, got to flip the cheddaring, have fun. Thanks, mate. It's great to see people making cheese during the show. It really does warm the cockles of my heart. Now, we've got 10 minutes to go. How many more questions? Oh, goodness me, lots, which is great. Yeah, let me see if I can get back to where I was. Oh, there we go. Ior, not Eeyore. Avignon says, how did they harvest cultures back before culture farming was a thing? They didn't. They just used the raw milk in their area, and that raw milk had the native lactic bacteria to their area. And the French call it the terroir, which is spelt terror, kinda, in English. But yeah, so the native lactic bacteria, so they let the milk warm up for 24 hours, which was enough acidification for them to start the cheese making process. They didn't have cultures back then because it was in the milk. Now, because we pasteurize everything, that's why we now add the cultures that were naturally occurring in the milk and were killed off in pasteurization back into the milk. So, and the great thing about that is we can create all these different flavors without having that same environment that the original cheese was made in. So I can make camembert without having, in Australia, without having the same criteria in the environment, the same pasture that the cows eat, the same lactic bacteria and yeasts in the air. So yeah, I can recreate those cheeses because there are now direct vat inoculated cultures, which is really cool. Go science. Damien, no, I missed one. Kevin said, any timelines for when you'll be able to start shipping internationally? Unfortunately not, Kevin. Like I've said in previous shows, we have had to cease international shipping at the moment because Australia Post won't pick up from our residents. They cancelled that service during the COVID-19 pandemic for reasons that are unknown, because all the other courier services are picking up, all the domestic ones, which is a shame. So once it gets back up on track, I'll announce it during the show. I'll send an email to the email list for Little Green Workshops and Little Green Cheese, and I'll put a notice on the website as well. So sorry, no news at the moment when they're going to restart that service for us. Andy says, my local cheesemaker makes an oozy Gorgonzola. It's creamy and so good. Any ideas how to make that? Well, there's two forms of Gorgonzola, Andy, and one's called Gorgonzola Dolce, which is sweet, and Gorgonzola Picante, which is very strong and aged for a very long time. I think you may have had the Picante one, which is the long age one, which is really runny. So yeah, that's the difference. Last super chat for the, well, probably not the last super chat, but Avignon, $5. Thank you so much. I'll just turn the light off so people don't have seizures. Thank you very much for your kind $5 super chat. There's no question with that, unless it's down the bottom somewhere. No, there is no question, unfortunately. Anyway, what's the matter, hun?
You can take it to 9:30 if you want to. I
can take it to 9:30. Kim's given me the thumbs up to take the show to 9:30, so we've got an extra half an hour. Thank you, darling. She's feeling a bit better by the sounds of it. So, yep, we're going to go to 9:30. Right, let me get back to where I was in the chat. And thanks for that $5 super chat. If I ever mentioned it, I've forgotten. Kim's train of thought's gone. Where are we? Oh, yeah, right. So, Uzi Gorgonzola. Yeah, so, yeah, they're the two difference. Picante and Dolce. Dolce's early age, probably 2 months. Picante can go anything up to 6 months to a year. And that's why it goes really running and very, very strong too. Very spicy. Picante means spicy in Italian. Damien says, also, how long do cheeses like Philly last after aging? In fact, how long do different kinds of cheeses last, and how well does that, and how that relates to aging process? Well, Damien, it's good practice there's a couple of ways you can do it. And back in the old days, with semi-hard and hard cheeses, they wrapped them in waxed paper and sealed it as best they could. And that stops the cheese from going mouldy. It also helps it from drying out as well. So that's what they used to do. These days, what I do is once a cheese is mature, I'll keep some in a airtight Tupperware container and put that in the kitchen fridge, about a quarter of the wedge. And that's just for Kim and I and Ben and friends and family to consume over the next coming month. And that keeps it okay, it doesn't go mouldy, the flavour's still okay, and that's in the kitchen fridge. With some cheeses, what I'll do, I'll take at least half of it and put it back in the cheese cave, vacuum packed, and keep maturing it and see what the flavour is. And you'll see some of those taste test videos on the channel where I've, so like the Pecorino Romano, 2.5 years I aged it for. Oh, I tell you what, it was amazing. I'm so glad I did it. The flavour was so much different than I remembered when I did it at, I think it was about the 10-month mark when I tasted it first time round. But yeah. And then the other bits for ready use, I just simply vac pack the last quarter and put it in the kitchen fridge. And it doesn't matter if it's blue or semi-hard or hard or washed rind. They all seem to do okay in vac packing, stored for long periods of time in the kitchen fridge. I've got pieces of cheese in there that are like 3-4 years old that I'm just waiting for the day that somebody says, oh, I'd love to try a piece of that, and I'll pull it out of the fridge and it'll be lovely. The ripening process is slowed right down at 4 degrees Celsius, so you can store it, well, I'm not going to say indefinitely, but there are some very long aged cheeses. With white mould cheeses, different kettle of fish. They continue to age at 4 degrees Celsius. So they have a best before date of probably about up to, depends. It depends. If it's a stabilised paste camembert, you got a good month. If it's a normal raw milk camembert or in that style, it goes oozy very quickly and goes smelly after about 2 weeks. So you really got to get it stuck into those camemberts pretty quickly. Which is the same for a traditional camembert from Normandy. Okay, next question is from Ferren, I think. Yeah, Ferren. Can I sprinkle the blue mould blend sachet into the curd like you do with the Gorgonzola cheese? Oh, look, you could, but you've got to remember there's an aromatic mesophilic in that blend. If you're using Mad Millie cultures. They're a aromatic and penicillium rote 40 blend. So you'll get a concentration of the aromatic mesophilic in that cheese. So probably not best to do that. You could. I'd like to see the results. But yeah, it's probably better not to. It's probably better to sprinkle just plain penicillium rote 40 in those sorts of cheeses. So I think I did the same with the buttermilk blue. Laura says, reference your blue Gouda. You didn't pierce yours. Yes, okay, yeah. But I tried so I could get some light blue veins. Granted, I did ask you how you would go about that first. Indeed. I forget these things. Sorry, Laura. Kim's put the link up for the American cheese, which is great. Daniel says, I love trying out your recipes. It makes it very easy to get into cheese making. Really appreciate your videos and praying for you and Kim and family during this crazy time. Stay safe. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it, mate. Giorgio says, sorry, Gavin, I need to get going. Thank you and Kim for answering my question. Hoping you guys enjoy the rest of the stream. I hope everybody does as well. Emmanuel says, I don't know about the time of the stream. Well, you're here, mate. That's great to see you. Daniel says, I just found a source for consistent grass-fed A2 raw milk. Do you know of any considerations I should keep in mind for changing up recipes versus store-bought milk? Yes, Daniel. Indeed. With raw milk, use a little bit less starter culture. So in most of the recipes I've seen for using raw milk versus pasteurised using DVI, you can use just about half the culture, honestly, with raw milk, and you'll get away with it because remember, all the lactobacteria is still active within that raw milk, especially if it's grass-fed. So you can use half the culture and use about 10% less rennet because you'll get a really strong curd set, indeed. So there are a couple of considerations. The rest of the process should be the same. Dwayne says, hello, Gavin. Hello, Dwayne. Lovely to see you. Laura says, thanks for your cheesy William. I'm off to make dinner and we'll raise a glass to you and Kim tonight. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. Manol says, the podcast 46, episode 46, says you don't mention about the pH because when ripening milk to 45 minutes, you get a good pH. Yes, indeed. That's correct. So simply in the timing, so milk will usually start off around with a pH of 6.8, and during that 45-minute ripening period, it'll drop probably 0.4, which is perfect for then renneting. Milk needs to be slightly acidic before you add the rennet. And that's the case for most cheeses. When you're doing some soft cheeses, you add the starter culture and the rennet all at the same time, very similar to the Gouda recipe I did yesterday, because it has a long renneting time as well. So, and you don't want as much acid development. But yeah, it does work. I got a, where did I put it? Mentioned the other day from John from Canada sent me through a pH meter. I haven't yet to test it, but I'll be making some pasta filata cheese again soon. So we've got another super chat. I'll just hit the button. Did that work? Oh, I'll try it again. Turned off. There we go. That's from Paul. Super chat from Paul. Thank you for your $10 super chat, Paul. Can you clarify if calcium chloride should be used with raw milk? And I also saw you should wait an hour before adding the rennet. That didn't seem right. Thank you. Also saw you should wait. Okay. So calcium chloride raw milk depends. It depends on the lactation stage of the animal. If it's late in the lactation stage, you'll have less milk solids, and it probably does pay to add calcium chloride to your milk. However, you'll still get a fairly decent curd set. If you're using goat's milk, for instance, I would always, whether it be raw or pasteurised, I'd always add calcium chloride because it tends to set a sloppy curd most times, but because it's a very fine structure. So yes, Wait an hour before adding the rennet. After calcium chloride? No, I just do it 2 minutes before. As long as it's there before the rennet, it's fine. Right, we've got another super chat there. I'll just stop the light. Daniel says, thanks for answering my question. Excited to start making cheese with raw milk. No problems at all, mate. Hope it goes well. Okay. Back to Manel's question where he talked about the pH. He's got a part 2. My question is there any difference between the homogenized milk and the different store-bought milk between countries? Yeah, there is. Standardized milk, they have different standards. So in the US and Canada, I think standardized milk is about 3.2% fat. That's what they standardize it down to. So they skim the cream off, and all the milk from all the dairies, they make it all the same. So it all tastes the same every time you buy it in a bottle. Here in Australia, it's about 3.5%, or 3.3 to 3.5, depends on the manufacturer. And that's how much cream you get in it. So how much fat you get in it. But the pH should be the same. Really, if they're processing it correctly, and it's been pasteurised, whether it's homogenised or not, it should be the same pH if stored correctly. Dwayne says, great live chat. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Nick is not so green. I just started on YouTube and was wondering what tips you have for getting your channel off the ground and gaining an audience. Yeah, I could go on. This is probably more about, not as much about cheese. But for gaining an audience, I think community interaction. So very similar. These live streams build a community, Nick. So you need to do that. You absolutely need to do live chats as well as good content on your YouTube channel. So content that people want to watch. So it's not about you, it's about the viewers. It's always about the viewers. You have to take that into consideration. But yeah, and answer the comments in the comments section. When you get a comment, make sure that they know that you've read your comment, and that makes people feel good. I know when I watch YouTube channels and I leave a comment, which I rarely do, and they give me a heart or they comment back, it makes your day, absolutely. So engage with your audience is what I can say. That's how you build a good YouTube channel and get an audience. You can also promote it on the socials if you've got a social media following on, say, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that sort of stuff. But yeah, you've got to start from scratch. Liz says, thanks very much for answering my question. Oh, thanks so much for answering my question. And a big hello from Boston, Massachusetts. Hope you're doing all right there, Liz. Craig, great to see you, Craig. Gavin, I've found using a sous vide stick in a container to hold water to heat my pot of milk when making cheese has given fantastic control over temperatures, particularly the ones that need an increase. It's great. Craig, I've got to spend a bit of Patreon money on a sous vide, I think, and get that going, because some of those ones where you have to increase the temperature is a little bit tricky sometimes, especially if you want to walk away. But really, you are stirring most of the time. But yeah, I'll give that a go. Dwayne says, will sun-dried tomatoes work in cheese making? Yeah, I can't see why not. I would probably boil them for 15 minutes, just simmer them in water, and they'll rehydrate a little bit. You could use, if they're really dry, and as long as they don't have any olive oil with them, because things in olive oil, if you keep them at room temperature, tend to get botulism, and that's not good for anybody. So yeah, if they're dried and you get them dried and they're not in olive oil, they would work. But yeah, I would boil them first and then put them into the curds, mill them into the curds, give it a go. But I think that'd probably be okay. Zvonka says, I think that's how you pronounce it. Hi Gavin, I'm Slovenian. I love your cheese show. I love you so much. What's your favourite cheese, man? No pun intended. That's so good. My favourite I love all the cheeses. I love them all. So I haven't met a cheese that I didn't like, except processed cheese. I don't like processed cheese. Mary Ann says, Gavin, I'm not sure Gavin, I'm not sure I'm remembering correctly. Did you mention that you are also a beekeeper? No, unfortunately not. I did think about it a while ago, many years ago, but then I remembered that I'm allergic to bee stings. So that wouldn't be good for anybody. We didn't have the room at the time either, so we don't have a hive, unfortunately. I do have lots of friends that are beekeepers. That's why I get this constant supply of honey, which I've still got some in the cupboard ready to make some mead. I need to pull my finger out to do that. Okay. Cristano says, greetings from Brazil, master. Greetings to you, Cristano. Why do you age your mould cheese in a box and not directly in the cage? Is it a way to avoid cross-contamination? Exactly, that is one reason. But the other one is to keep the humidity high. So I don't have to keep the humidity in the cheese fridge high. I just keep it warm in the box, and I've mentioned that before. Larry says, could you add more cream to the quick mozzarella recipe to get a better flavour? Yeah, you probably could, Larry. I used a fairly good milk. So the Inglenook dairy milk that I use is about 3.8%, so they don't standardise their milk. They take a little bit of cream off, I think, sometimes. But yeah, it's the lowest is 3.8, but I was talking to Troy, who runs the dairy, and his lovely wife Rachel. Most of the time when they test it, the fat in the milk is usually about 4.1%, so quite high. And they don't take any cream off it unless it's for the low-fat version of their milk. So that's what's written on the carton is the minimum it has to be. They say it's always a little bit higher, which is good. But yeah, you could add cream to mozzarella. I wouldn't add very much. To an 8-litre batch of milk, I'd probably only add 100 mils. So yeah, 100 millilitres. I wouldn't add much more. And you'd probably get a good result out of that too. But you don't want it too creamy, because when you do the heating of the milk, it won't be like buffalo milk, so it will just bleed fat into the water, unfortunately. Avignon said, have you ever had, I think it's have you ever had Rochelle cheese, beautiful and fruity? No, I haven't. I'll have a look. Rochelle. I'll check that out. David says, I made your halloumi, and while cooking in the whey, it floated only after 15 minutes, and when folded, it cracked. Should I leave it for longer, even when it's floating? No, I've had halloumi, when I've made halloumi in the past, probably not in that video, but yeah, sometimes it takes I've seen it float at 15 minutes. I've seen it float at 10 minutes. So yeah, it's no big deal. And I've seen it take up to 45 minutes before some blocks, all from the same batch, have floated as well. Yeah, sometimes it does crack when you fold it over. In the very first halloumi video I ever made, I actually used raw milk as half the milk for it. So it had a lot of fat in it. It had a lot of the native cultures in it as well, and it seemed to perform better, and it folded okay. I never had any issues with it. One of them did actually crack, I think if you look at the video. In the second halloumi video I did with the fresh cheese kit from Mad Millie, I used their recipe, and I used unhomogenized milk. I don't think I even folded them. I just sprinkled them in mint flakes and salt, and I think they turned out all right as well. And I think a few of those floated at 15 minutes. It's no big deal. Because of the way you've made the cheese and the way you've heated it, you'll find that they may melt a little bit more than the early floaters. But it'll still turn out, because the acidity is hardly there at all, it won't melt. It won't melt in the pan when you fry the cheese, so it'll be fine. Jack Rabbit says, how does 30-minute How does 30-minute and quick mozzarella differ? It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Josephine says, hi Gavin, are you a dog or cat person? Yeah, I'm a dog person. There, Holly, wakey wakey, there she is. So that's one of my doggos. That's Holly the cheese dog. She always sleeps in here. Teddy's the other one. He's down here. I'm not going to pivot the camera because I'll never get it back again. But he's the other one. He's sleeping in here as well. He's a West Highland Terrier. So that's Teddy. So I'm a dog person. Doomcake says, PVA, so cool. Thank you. Yep, don't use the glue, PVA glue. It's a special cheese coating. I don't sell it because I can't get my hands on it. But I probably would sell it because it is quite a good product. Okay. Lynn says, what do you think about vegan potato peanut cheese? What? I haven't heard of vegan potato peanut cheese. Nut cheeses, yeah, sure, I've tasted those, and some of them reasonable facsimiles of real cheese, but, you know, they're not real cheese. I have made a vegan, what was it, cream cheese, I think it was. Something like that. Tasted quite nice. I liked it. Cool. Gavin says, not me, another Gavin. Another question, what is an easy cheese to make for beginners? Kim probably would have put some links up at the start of the show. Paneer, ricotta, all easy cheeses. Halloumi's pretty easy. Kefili, feta is quite easy as well, as long as you get the brine ratios right, and you won't get a slimy cheddar, so a slimy feta, sorry. And kefili, if I haven't mentioned that already, they're all good cheeses to make for beginners. There is actually a link somewhere. Kim might have put it up. No, Kim, can you put the beginners link to the cheese makers without a fridge? Pop that link up for that video, and that'll help out Gavin. Michael says, Kim Webber, you are amazing. Gavin asked you to post a recipe, and Shazam, it's there right before my eyes. Love and prayers. Yep, she is pretty cool. Farron says, how do I cultivate, reuse Penicillium candidum? It's very difficult, actually. No, I've never tried it. I have with blue cheese, with blue mold, Penicillium roque 40. Penicillium candidum's a little bit harder to cultivate yourself. So, no, I don't have any experience doing that. Sorry. Yeah, Dwayne says this is great. Thank you, Dwayne. Nicola. No, he hasn't got a question. Robert says, what is a good sour cream culture? Mine came out a little bit like a creme fraiche. The one I tend to use is MO36R by Sacco. We sell it in the shop. It's aromatic mesophilic, great for soft cheeses. I think it has the right acid profile personally. I tend to like the sour cream quite sour, so aromatic mesophilic is a great culture for that. Also to make cream cheese, I also make it to make cream cheese. So yeah, try that. A good quick acidifier. So MO36R by Sacco is a good one. Skyline says, what's up, Cheeseman? Not much, that's what my son says all the time. Zvonka says, Gavin, I tried your brick cheese. After a week, it has a slight medicine smell, a medical smell. It's going to smell worse than that, I tell you what. Yeah, because it's a washed rind cheese, you wait. If you've never smelled one before, you're in for a treat. Smelly socks is what it will get to eventually. Every time I open my cheese fridge for the Morbier that's ripening in there at the moment, in a ripening box, mind you, the smell, my goodness me, it just hits you straight away. Smelly feet. But the cheese it will taste fantastic. I think it'll be fine. Keep aging it, see what it's like. If the nose knows, if it doesn't smell like smelly socks, then there's something wrong with it. Okay, Ferren says, I'm going to make mozzarella today and probably brie if the pandemic ends. I'm going to save some money. Yeah, it's going to go for a while, I think, the lockdowns and stuff. Certainly here in Australia anyway. It's not going to be lifted anytime soon. But look, if you can get milk in your shopping, then go for it now. Why wait? Just get into it. Joseph says, hi Gavin, do you have any more butter recipe videos planned? I love the one you did earlier. I did. There is another butter video. I've got two now. So there's the herb and garlic one, which is quite easy. There is a cultured butter one where I had it in a jar and I shook the bejeebas out of it and made cultured butter. And that tasted different, obviously, than the normal traditional butter. It was a little bit more acidic, a little bit more flavoursome, actually. Because if you don't salt normal butter, the one where you just whip it, the one I made recently, if you don't salt it enough, it doesn't taste of anything. There's no flavour to it. As Kim tells me, one of the 4 batches I made, I didn't salt it enough. So, yeah. So do I plan to do any more? Probably not. I didn't really get the views that I was after. People do appreciate it, I know that, because it had quite a few views too. I think it's like 5,000-6,000 now. Yeah, look, once you've made one batch of butter, you've kind of made them all, if that makes sense. Okay. Zvonka says, hi Gavin, can you please come to Slovenia? We are making cheese especially for you. I'm sorry, I can't travel. Nobody can travel at the moment. And due to Kim's condition, which you may not know about, she has cancer, so I won't be travelling anywhere in a hurry while she's undergoing treatment, which is for the next year at least. So, sorry about that. Purple Smiley Monster says, a little late, sorry, vacuum seal versus wax pros and cons. Microbial versus animal rennet for aged cheeses. That's 2 questions. You've got 2 questions there. Vac sealing versus waxing. Vac sealing, the plastic is not reusable. It's great for semi-hard and hard cheeses, but I wouldn't try anything softer. It tends to make Havarti go flat very quickly, whereas waxing doesn't. Waxing, you can reuse the wax over and over again. It is messy, whereas vacuum packing is not. Both age the cheese exactly the same, and I've done a test on this. I've had one stir-curd cheddar in wax and one stir-curd cheddar in vacuum packing, and they taste exactly the same. So there is no difference in the aging of the cheese. So, yeah, and don't vac pack any mould-ripened cheese except after when it's been ripened, because it needs oxygen to breathe and multiply. Microbial versus animal rennet. Look, they say that animal rennet is better for longer aged cheeses. I don't know, because I don't use animal rennet. I only use microbial rennet. And that's just purely for ethical reasons. James says, nothing like cow's milk straight from the tit. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Teat, it should be. That's what they're called. They're called teats. Karen says, can cow milk be used straight from the cow? Indeed, it's called raw milk. So, yes, you can do that. Manel just donated $5. Thank you, Manel. I can't see the little message. Says, no, I do see the message. It says, thanks, I'm very appreciative, master. Thank you, Manel. I appreciate it, mate. And that was via PayPal. There is a little, for those who don't have Super Chat, there is a little PayPal link down below in the description. So if you can't do Super Chat and you want to donate, then like Manel, you can see that he did it via PayPal. I got a little notification on my phone. That's why I knew what was going on. And over there, you get the little cheese wedge come down. Jason says, I recently made manchego, but with cow's milk. Yep, that's what I've done. It looks incredible, but I was curious if you've ever made a dedicated sheep's milk cheese. Manchego, no, I haven't made a sheep's milk manchego, which you're supposed to, because that's what it's made from. I made a cow's milk manchego. It tasted great. In fact, I think the recipe online was with cow's milk. Have I made a dedicated sheep's milk cheese? Yes. Pecorino Romano. And Kim, if you can find the recipe for that and pop the video up for Jason, you'll see Pecorino Romano. And there's a 2.5 year taste test after I made the Pecorino Romano, which you might have seen recently, Jason. And the flavour was to die for. It was amazing. James says, goat's milk is Italian, so yes, sheep's milk should also work. Okay, fair enough. Goat's milk is not Italian. Everybody uses goat's milk. Resh says, hey Gavin, hope you're doing well. Thanks, Resh. It could be Resh. I am. Thank you very much for asking. Nothing of importance says, hi Gavin. In my local store, I can get hold of homogenised 4% milk and non-homogenised 1.5. Which one would you recommend for making cheese? Thank you for your wonderful content. I'd use the higher fat content milk, the 4%er, and don't forget to add calcium chloride, and that'll help. It's not the homogenisation. Well, it does. It shrinks the fat globules, so it helps. It prevents a better curd set. It's the pasteurisation that we're adding calcium chloride to try to add a little bit more soluble calcium back into the milk that gets destroyed during pasteurisation. But yeah, the 4% milk is better, even though it says you've got non-homogenised for 1.5, which seems a bit weird. Why would you do that? Anyway, James says, many say that is sacrilegious and don't try it, but they've never had such something. Don't see anything else there. Okay, Per Gref says, have you made cheese based on some more exotic kind of animal milk than the typical farm animals? No, I haven't. It's very hard to catch a kangaroo and milk it, you know. They run very fast. So no, I haven't had any out of the exotic animals. There are quite a few camel milk cheeses, but it's very hard to get your hands on camel milk as well. It doesn't typically set with rennet very well either. It's more based, and in the Middle East too, they make a lot of yogurt sort of cheeses out of camel's milk. I've just lost where on my spot. Z says, greetings. I was wondering if adding calcium chloride to milk affects its stretchability for mozzarella. Yes, sometimes it does. So if you are having issues with your quick mozzarella, what you could do is, as long as you've got some decent milk, you can omit the calcium chloride, and it does actually help. We've got a $5 super chat there. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Jordan. You said my Swiss was a failure. Hard, super hard, no holes, didn't have a good taste. Going to try again. Some suggestions there, mate. Try the Jarlsberg recipe. I've had nothing but success from that. And it does have quite a high amount of propionic shamani in it. Remembering that propionic shamani doesn't have a long shelf life as do the normal lactic bacteria starter cultures. So if it's been sitting around for a while, then it may not work as well. You've got to use it quite fresh. And I just seem to use lots of it. I can't remember, in my Jarlsberg recipe, it's a lot more than what's in the Emmentaler recipe. I seem to have a lot more success with the Jarlsberg recipe as I do the Emmentaler recipe. So try that one out. It'll have a great taste. It uses a lot more propionic shamani as well. So give that a go, Jordan. And thanks for your kind $5 super chat. Back to the questions. Lots of links from Kim. Thank you, Kimmy, for doing that. We have 1 minute to go. So that's it. We will wrap up the show. Kim is giving me all of the links. So thank you so much, everybody, for your support during the show. We went for an hour and a half today, which is a bonus. So thank you so much. If you want to support the show, you can become a YouTube member or a Patreon and pledge your support financially once a month. and that always helps the show and me create better and better videos, if that makes sense. If you want to buy any merch, then check out the merch shelf down below as well. And Kim's put the link directly to the Cheeseman TV merch store. And there's some cool merch, certified curd nerd that I'm wearing, and a certified curd nerd cup. So they're all there at the merch store. You can go and check them out. There's lots of t-shirts. I've got lots of designs there as well. And don't forget that if you want to buy anything from the shop and you're domestic at the moment here in Australia, then pop over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au. Let me see, do I have that up as a picture? I do. Let's... So littlegreenworkshops.com.au is where we're at. And we've got a whole cheese making section, and we've had to suspend international shipping, so apologies for that. But yeah, all the stuff's still there. Most of it's in stock, which is all good. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the show, I'm going to play in the tradition of Anzac because I served for 20 years in the Royal Australian Navy and served in the First Gulf War conflict. I'm going to play for you the last post going out on the show. So we're going to do that now. But thank you for all your questions and all your answers. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, fingers crossed, if Kim's feeling okay, we'll be back next Saturday, our time, which is Friday for most everybody else. And we've started the show earlier, so hopefully we get some Europeans and some what we call POMs, or people from the UK, there as well. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we will see you next time. Let me just figure out how I'm going to do this. And over to screen number 2.